Do you think that any decision that is being taken in Washington or in Tel Aviv or in Tehran or in Tokyo or Moscow, it affects any decision taken there affects us sitting here in India?
Definitely India is growing. India is going to become a big player in the international geopolitics as a peacemaker, our today's topic. But still, we have not reached to that position like China, US and other NATO countries. Still they are deciding, and there whatever decisions are being made in Washington or Beijing or in Moscow, which is to an extent imposed on us. If we are able to come up with economic stability, that can only happen with more GDP, more employment, more education, more healthcare facility, the very basics. Vajpayee was a great statesman. What did he say? That if you are strong enough, the miscreants will not disturb you. If you are powerful, nobody will disturb you. So we are going to use this power for peace. We will not succumb to any American pressure. We will not succumb to any Russian pressure. We will not succumb to any Chinese pressure. Whatever we think and feel good for us, we'll go by that.
What is the one geopolitical threat that India is currently ignoring? Today we have with us Professor Debanjan Banerjee. He is an author, speaker, columnist and political analyst. Welcome to Bridging Ideas, sir.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and very good evening.
Good evening. Today's episode we'll be discussing about India as the emerging leader in international geopolitics and a key global peacemaker. Let's start with you, sir. So, if I ask you a question about this geopolitics stuff, so we are seeing a lot of Indians usually think about geopolitics as a war or something that's happening in the foreign ministry. But if you see in a factor, how does it affect the life of an individual Indians?
See, for example, the nomenclature of today's topic is very relevant at this point of time when India is playing a big role in international politics and international geopolitics. Now, let me tell you what exactly geopolitics is. Geopolitics is a study of physical geography, right? Such as location, climate, topography, and natural resources, which influencing a country's politics, foreign policy, and international power dynamics. So these three key points are very, very important. Number one is the country's politics. This politics can be internal politics as well as external politics. Its foreign policy, its relationship with the neighboring countries as well as across the globe, and international power dynamics, how the country is playing a very, very important role in international power dynamics. Now, your question is pertaining to how it affects the common mass. If I ask a common mass that what exactly geopolitics is and what will be India's foreign policy and what will be the international power dynamics, they won't understand. They can only understand how much it affects in their daily life, right? Your question is correct. Now, first of all, definitely there is a direct connection of international politics, our country's foreign policy, and international power dynamics in the common masses' life. Even a common Indian may have to suffer for any kind of international confrontations, conflicts, or any dilemma, which ultimately affecting us. Because to an extent, everyone is dependent to other. Whether you are a superpower, whether you are a semi-power, or you are a low power, everybody has to depend. Even the strongest nations of this world, the so-called the Americans, the Russians, the Chinese, the three global superpowers, even they have to depend on other countries. Now the question is, that means there is a need of interdependency between communities staying across the world. Like the people who are staying in Kolkata, their GDP is much less. The people, those who are staying in California, they're much richer in that way. If somebody is staying at Detroit and somebody is staying in New Delhi, if somebody is staying in Bangalore or somebody is staying in Boston, maybe different. There is a big difference of per capita income, GDP of the particular country and our country. But still, there is a need of interdependency. Now the question is, how far geopolitics is affecting a common mass, precisely a common Indian? Mostly, I can tell you there are three key points are responsible for this, and these 3 points are very, very essential for a common man. Number one is the job security. Number one, biggest ever challenge for a common mass to get a good job or doing a very good business. So if there is any international conflict, confrontations, even tumultuous situation is going on across the globe, that might affect any country, and India cannot be an exception. Now the question is, Indians are extremely talented in that way. If you go through different countries, big multinational companies, whether if you think about these American big giants like Microsoft, Apple,
the big techs,
Apple, even you go to Pentagon, if you go to NASA, you'll be finding many Indians are working, right?
Correct.
So across the globe, Indians are the biggest ever intellectual resources. They are serving the global superpowers.
Correct.
Now, if there is a big problem is going on in an international way, the war, the conflict, definitely it will have a big effect in our country also, right? Directly and indirectly. So definitely this job security is one of the key thing which might affect a common Indian. Maybe he's staying in a rural sector of our country. Even that can affect an international dispute, can affect his job, right? Number one. Number two is the biggest ever challenge we are facing at this point of time, more precisely at this crucial juncture, is energy or oil crisis, right?
Correct.
Because the country is dependent on energy or oil, right? So the biggest ever case study right at this point of time, huge amount of media coverage is going on, and we are all very apprehensive. We are really very scared of that war is going on between
Iran and Middle East, and basically between Israel and Iran, and where US has also
previously it was between the Russians and the Ukrainians.
Correct.
Definitely Russia is also a big oil producer, and this conflict between Iran and Israel, which is creating a huge problem for international energy prices, right? Because the controversy within this Hormuz Strait,
correct.
and when these Iranians are blocking this Hormuz, and the oils are, all the countries are unable to import oil from a particular strait, and there's a huge oil crisis is going on. Where from you will be purchasing the oil? And oil is called you can say the new gold. We used to call the new gold and the petrodollars, right? For the common mass, the price of the petrol is increasing. In Kolkata, I can tell you that just 1 month before I purchased petrol from a petrol pump, 102 rupees, now it is 130.
Correct.
And our Honorable Prime Minister is telling that the toughest time are coming. Please don't waste petrol. Even the government is taking some austerity measures. All the cabinet ministers are using less number of vehicles. Even some ministers are coming by bicycle because they can anticipate that energy is very precious.
Correct.
And India is not that much of an energy producer country. Yes,
Correct.
definitely we have some refineries, we have some in Bombay coast, in Gujarat coast, but that is not adequate in terms of our consumption's point of view.
Yeah, I think from the gas point of view, we are really bad because our 70% imports happens from,
especially LPG.
LPG happens from Iran.
Absolutely, Iran, especially from the Hormuz Strait.
Correct.
So naturally, first of all, job. If there is a turmoil situation in Middle East, if there is a turmoil situation in US, because US is indirectly involved in the war, so there is a huge possibility of job cut, and that might affect for this geopolitical confrontation between two countries. Maybe they are very far from our country, maybe they are 8,000 kilometers or 5,000 kilometers far, but that their effect of that war is coming. And the third is definitely the digital stability. So first is definitely number one, I talked about the job security, digital safety, and the most important part which touches our daily life is the price of the essential household items, because there may be some disruption in supply chain management. You might not get food properly, right? There's a problem of import and export, right?
Yes.
So there is a problem in supply chain also. So in this way, the common people are suffering in the geopolitical situation of the world. Even the country maybe in Africa, in Angola, Nigeria, the people from Nigeria can suffer if there is a fight between US and Iran.
Correct.
If there is a fight between Russia and Ukraine, there can be a crisis of energy in India also, because India is the biggest ever importer of oil from Russia.
True. Because what we have seen is, see, this, when you spoke about this, like as you said, it's about job security, because the impact happens to a common Indian is about job security. Because when the war doesn't happen at my ground, I don't feel it. So as you said, it's just job security, is the digital safety and the price rise, as you mentioned. The other thing that you spoke about Ukraine and Russia is that the war has been, if I see the war has not started now, it has started in 2014. It aggravated in 2025.
Exactly.
For the last 4 years, we have been in a very dire situation. One thing that before the sanctions happened and all these things, like India cannot buy Russian oil and all this stuff that came recently, I think when the situation was such that when I think Biden government was there, we were given that leverage to buy Russian oils to counter the price on both the sides. And we did import a lot of Russian oils. We refined those crude oil and we became the largest exporter of crude oil to, I would say, EUs and all the APACs. So this is where we have benefited a lot, and that's the reason we could sustain that. But yeah, in terms of gas and LPG, today we are in a dire crisis. And with all this war going on, because I think we never thought that the Middle East would be involved in this war. Oman, UAE, they have got involved without even their own knowledge, like they were just bombarded. So now my question to you is, like, as you said, that it really impacts every Indian. So in this case, do you think that, like, if I talk about the normal structure, like where we are in terms of geopolitics today, so every decision, do you think that any decision that is being taken in Washington or in Tel Aviv or in Tehran or in Tokyo or Moscow, it affects, any decision taken there affects us sitting here in India?
Absolutely. See, till now we are a developing country. We are not yet a developed country. We are not under the bracket of G7. Still,
Correct.
we are under the G20 bracket.
Correct.
Previously, like 40 years or 50 years before, we were underdeveloped.
Correct.
Now we are developing and we are one of the key player in G20. But still, we are not in the bracket of G7, number one.
Correct.
Number two is India, despite doing all many good things as the biggest ever mediator in peace, as a peace broker in international perspective at this point of time, India is negotiating between the war between Ukraine and Russia. India is also playing the role as a biggest ever peacemaker between Iran and Israel, because
Correct.
India's relationship with both Iran and Israel is very good. So India is definitely a big player at this point of time. But on the contrary, it is also true, India is still not a permanent member of UN Security Council.
Correct.
Okay, India is trying for a long time. Many Western European countries are backing India. Germany is backing India. France is backing India. But still, China is the biggest ever obstacle for India. So try to understand. Definitely, India is growing. India is going to become a big player in the international geopolitics as a peacemaker, our today's topic. But still, we have not reached to that position like China, US, and other NATO countries. Still, they are deciding, and there, whatever decisions are being made in Washington or Beijing or in Moscow, which is to an extent imposed on us. Especially, there are some dependency out there. First of all, our country's economy is definitely growing in the future course of time. According to World Bank, according to International Monetary Fund, India will be the superpower of economics also in the future course of time. Maybe after 2 or 3 decades, but after 2 or 3 decades.
Correct.
Not at this point of time.
Correct.
So still, we are not that much of economical superpower, right? So in today's present global politics, it is not how much Sukhoi, how much Mirage, how much Tomahawk, how many Agni 1, Agni 2, Agni 3, Agni 4, Agni 5 or BrahMos or S-400 you have. But thing is that how many S-400 you can manufacture indigenously and how much you can export.
With all the technologies built in-house.
Exactly. And how much you'll be able to export this to the global countries, by which from that money you become financially stable. Your currency becomes one of the most robust currency, not like $1 US is equal to 95 Indian rupees. It should be a different story, like 1 Indian rupee should be 5 US dollar. So that is the biggest ever challenge. Like, if we are able to come up with economic stability, that can only happen with more GDP, more employment, more education, more healthcare facility, the very basics. So then and only then can a country can grow. Definitely India is growing, definitely, and India is in the right track, but miles to go. So we are expecting in the coming days, like our Honorable Prime Minister is saying, by 2040 to 50, India will become a global superpower. But the only precondition is employment, industry, health, and ultimately that will lead you to more GDP, and the dollar will become envious to see the rupee. So we want to see that day.
Correct.
So when the people will see that 1 Indian rupee is equal to 50 US dollar. So then and only then you can become a real superpower.
50 or 5 US dollars.
Whatever it is, that means your currency is getting strength. In between, I can tell you that to counter this dollar, also you must be knowing that 5 countries are
Correct.
coming
The
very
BRICS.
close together. The BRICS.
Yeah.
The BRICS. I think the BRIC first it was founded in June 16, 2009. It was BRIC, not BRICS. Initially, it was Brazil, Russia, India, and China. In the next year, in 2010, South Africa joined. So the BRICS main motto is to make another currency. That currency will compete with the euro and dollar in the international trade agreements, balance of trade and balance of payment, by which you'll be able to counter this American dollars.
Sure. India buys oil from Russia, collaborates with the US, and then has a friendly tie with Iran, and has a lot of military presence or military collaboration with Israel. Do you think that collaboration, how India is managing all this collaboration and this kind of relations with all these countries, do you think it's something that we have some kind of a does this happen like over the past decade, or do you think there's a history behind it that we have been able to be in a neutral with all these countries?
Very good question. First of all, I would like to tell you that kudos goes to the present government and their foreign policy. They must be praised for that. Definitely, India had a very rich legacy of foreign policy. We had the great foreign external affairs. Even Atal Bihari Vajpayee, once upon a time, an external affairs minister. We had Natwar Singh in the Congress government. We had Sushma Swaraj as a foreign minister, very successful. But definitely, I have to praise the present external affairs minister Jaishankar, right? And India's policy, foreign policy, how to balance the whole world, despite there is a huge confrontation between different blocs.
Correct.
India is a friend of everyone. This is the biggest ever achievement of the Indian foreign policy for the last 5 to 10 years, which we have all witnessed. See, there is a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, right? But the Ukraine head is calling our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi, please talk with the Russians.
Correct.
As a peacemaker. Narendra Modi and Honorable Foreign Minister Jaishankar is speaking with their Russian counterparts and convincing them, and they also believe, yes, India can become a peacemaker. So India keeps themselves in a very neutral position, right? They are the friend of one bloc. They're also the friend of the other bloc, but both the blocs are fighting in this world at this point of time. Take the example of Israel and Iran, right? There's a long-lasting relationship between Iran and India.
Correct.
I could remember during the Kargil war, if you can remember, I can tell you, please, you can go through the previous media footages. Most of the Muslim countries backed Pakistan during Kargil war,
Correct.
barring Iran. Iran supported India.
Correct.
And Iran is a very, you must be knowing, as per the history, Iran was called the Persia.
Correct.
There's a huge similarity of civilization between our civilization and the Iranian civilization. Correct. So there is a very good friendship and bonding between both the countries. And India used to purchase oils from Iran also, especially the gas, which you mentioned right now. Now the question of Israel. I can tell you, during Mrs. Gandhi, late Prime Minister Mrs. Indira Gandhi's time, India's relationship was not very good with Israel. India was very close to Palestine, like Yasser Arafat, PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization. But there is a paradigm shift gradually. Like even if you go to US, you'll be finding their foreign policy also keeps changing.
Correct.
When the Republicans are coming, one strategy.
Democrats.
While the Democrats are coming, another strategy. If you go to England, same thing is applicable for the Conservatives and the Labour Party, right?
Correct.
So exactly during this BJP government phase, India started improving the relationship between India and Israel, and now the relationship is very good. Even I can tell you, during this Kargil war, India got a huge assistance from Israel. Different
Correct.
missile system, different anti-missile technology being offered, different software. You're talking about the power of AI, how AI can play a pivotal role in warfare at this modern era. So Israel was our biggest ever friend. Not only that, Israel is wholeheartedly supported India during Kargil war as well as in Operation Sindoor, right? Now the question is, everyone believes India in that way because India behaved very maturedly, especially in the diplomatic maturity which we have witnessed over the years. Like Jaishankar told very specifically, you cannot dictate.
Correct.
We will decide our policy. Now, our oppositions, there is a internal conflict started that the oppositions are accusing government of India, the Modi government, that US is pressurizing. That's why India will not purchase the Russian oil. But it is completely a false statement. India is still purchasing a huge amount of Russian oil, and ultimately, the US president succumbed.
Correct.
Ultimately, he succumbed, right? The French head came to India, gave unconditional support, any technological advancement, even the biggest ever deal of Rafael.
Correct.
Right? Even previously, 10 to 15 years back, we got the technology from French government to manufacture Mirage 2000 in HAL.
Correct.
So we insisted for technology transfer, and they transferred us because they trusted us, because India played in the world politics in a very matured way. But this maturity only happens because India is growing. If you grow, people will start respecting you. In every sphere, from science and technology, from manufacturing arms and ammunition. I can tell you statistics. Recent times, government of India is exporting huge amount of indigenously built Indian weapon to countries like Armenia, the Russian bloc,
Correct.
right? They're selling arms and weapons to Philippines.
Yeah, the BrahMos was sold. Correct.
Far East countries, Vietnam, right? So they're all using, and these are all built indigenously. Like the BrahMos, the combination of Brahmaputra and Moskova, and all the upgradation of Agni, all the missile systems, everything India is producing indigenously. So even economically also, India is a key member of BRICS, right? Like all these 5 countries are planning for a unique currency to counter the US dollar. And India is playing a big role. And I'm telling you, in 2026, BRICS summit is going to take place in New Delhi. I think it is in September. Yes, in September, first week or second week, the BRICS summit will take place. The last summit took place in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. So in that way, India is everybody's friend. Everybody trusts India because India behaved very maturely. India never, take for example in Operation Sindoor, the backlash of the Pahalgaon massacre of killing innocent 26 civilians, mainly tourists, by the Pak-sponsored terrorists, and India just neutralized the terrorist outfit.
Correct.
So what a precision of the Indian Army and Indian Air Force. They never hit any civilians. Even they never hit the Pakistani military infrastructure, but they hit all the terrorist outfit or the camps of Lashkar-e-Taiba Harkatul Ansar, all these are there. But the way precisely the calculation and using AI, the precision the Indian army showed while hitting the Pakistani target, especially the terrorist outfit, it was a technological war which India proved their immense supremacy in front of the world.
And that could be one reason that we are talking about, that people are recognizing our technology, our warfare
Absolutely.
stuff, because as you spoke about the other countries in South
Absolutely.
Asia Pacific and other places, the thing is, because of this, there has been because of this war, and people have seen firsthand that we were able to, like when the drones came flying from the other side, from the Pakistan side,
All the drones were properly intercepted.
exactly.
Even the so-called elite Chinese drones were completely destroyed by the Indian missile technology system.
Correct. I think our Akash system was much more
superior.
than what we had in Israel.
Absolutely. Not only that, latest development I can share with you, because I always go through the defense journals. India is already ready with the ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile. Agni 5 is already
Correct.
5,000 to 6,000 kilometers. Now Agni 6 is upgraded. It's almost 10,000 to 15,000.
Correct.
It will completely cover the whole Europe, even a part of US, and China is completely covered. Now the question is, India is never played the role of an aggressor as per the history. We can only defend themselves. I can tell you a very good example. When under the leadership of late Atal Bihari Vajpayee, when he was Prime Minister of India, India first experimented the hydrogen bomb. You must be remembering, right?
Correct.
In Pokhran 2.
Pokhran, huh?
Mrs. Gandhi was instrumental for the first one, and Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the second one.
Correct.
So once the experiment was done, in the press meet, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, late Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, told in the press conference, Buddha smiles,
Correct.
quote unquote.
Correct.
If it is Buddha smiles, the whole Indian press and the international press like Reuters, the agencies like AP, Associated Press, AFP, the Washington Post, the New York Times, all the leading newspapers, the Guardian, the London Telegraph, the journalists asked Atal Ji, why you are saying Buddha smiles? You are experimenting a hydrogen bomb, which is going to become a destructive and devastating bomb, and you are talking Buddha smiles. Buddha is for peace. It is not a peace initiative.
Correct.
It is an initiative of aggression. And Vajpayee was a great statesman. I can
Correct.
tell you,
His
there is a difference
origin-
between a politician and a statesman.
Correct.
So Vajpayee was a great statesman. What did he say? That if you are strong enough, the miscreants will not disturb you. If you are powerful, nobody will disturb you. So we are going to use this power for peace. In this subcontinent, we were already attacked by our neighboring Pakistan 3 to 4 times in 1947-48 First War,
60.
then 1965, then 1971,
And
then the Kargil War.
19.
Right? These are the
Correct.
direct war. Besides this, there are lots of proxy wars going on.
Correct.
Terrorists are coming, infiltrating in our country's border. So we suffered. In 1962, we also suffered. But at this point of time, if you are strong enough, your naughty neighbor will not disturb you, because they can understand that if they do some aggression, India will only use minimum deterrent. That means just counter. So all our warfare technology, not for aggression, which is proved, we only defend. I can add you, by finishing this particular question, you must be doing the UN peacekeeping force.
Correct.
Right. If you go through the history of UN peacekeeping force, maximum peacekeeping forces are recruited from India. India played a big role in United Nations peacekeeping force.
Correct.
So who is powerful? Who can able to stop the fight? So that is our philosophy. But definitely that's why the whole world is behind us. They call us the two hostiles fighting with each other, but both the hostiles are very close friends to us. Both A and B believes I. A and B are the arch rivals, but A's head is calling I's head, that please do something and save us. B also is requesting I, save us. So India has proved its credibility to be a peacemaker through its progress, through its positive attitude, through its independent nature and helping hand attitude, as well as prosperity.
No, I think that brings a very good point, because you have touched on all these things about why we are considered as the peacemaker today, because other country believes in us, and that belief has come over time where we have acted maturely. So, sir, you have spoken about India's image as a global peacemaker, right? So we have seen that every country, as you said, they have been like accepted India as a global peacemaker. The other countries have started accepting and realizing this. So this, do you think that this has happened over this time, or there is a history behind it?
How India became today as the one of the biggest ever player in peacemaking. Where India stand that time. India got its independence in 1947, was a poor country, even not at all self-sufficient in food also. You must be knowing the Green Revolution led by our late Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri, then the White Revolution of dairy industry in Amul in early 70s. So India was a poor country. India had to struggle a lot to feed their own people. So India was not a part of international politics. Nobody gave any importance to India because India was a poor country, just got independence, struggling for employment, industry, basically agricultural based country. There was no infrastructure, there's no irrigation system, there's no technology, and it was completely dependent on some kind of American helps, little bit of. But the first biggest ever diplomatic initiative took by India, because India from the very beginning was not pro-NATO. India was never for pro-Warsaw. India was in between because India was struggling with their own problem. But country like India, there are some other countries, they thought that we have to create another bloc. That bloc will be a neutral bloc. We are not with the Americans, we are not with the Russians. So in 1961, this is one of the first biggest ever initiative of India in international geopolitics and world diplomacy. India played a very key role, one of the leader in 1961, 1st September. It was also took place on 1st September in Yugoslavia's capital Belgrade. 5 key post-colonial leaders and their respective countries founded non-aligned movement. That was, I can tell you, the first biggest ever India's initiative in international diplomacy and geopolitics. The leaders like our late Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, Joseph Tito of Yugoslavia, Gamal Nasser from Egypt, Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana, and Subarno from Indonesia. These 5 leaders from these 5 mentioned countries, they formed NAM. So that was, I can say, the first historical backdrop of India's initiative in geopolitics. Now the question is, even Pakistan later joined in NAM, but in between there is a personal problem between India and Pakistan. After independence, after very independence, there was a first war between India and Pakistan in Kashmir in 1947-48. Later on, again in 1965, again a battle between India and Pakistan in Kashmir, mainly in Kashmir. In between, Chinese aggression in India in 1962. Then 1971, I can tell you, another biggest ever U-turn and a drastic decision by Government of India led by late Prime Minister Mrs. Gandhi. The splitting of Pakistan, East Pakistan, and formation of Bangladesh, the liberation war of Bangladesh, 1971. That was the biggest ever another geopolitical initiative by India, and India got a huge support from Soviet Union at that time. The Soviet technology, Soviet infrastructure, Soviet intelligence, they helped India in this war, and it was a thumping victory for Indian government, and India splitted Pakistan and a new country formed called Bangladesh, right? So that I can tell you the second ever, biggest ever government of India's initiative or step pertaining to geopolitical perspective. Because if Pakistan is there in the eastern parts of our country, that could have been extremely detrimental for our security and sovereignty. And this Pakistani regime started torturing the Bengalis
Correct.
in Bangladesh. I'm not mentioning Hindu Muslims, all Bengalis were tortured by the Pakistani government. And India became the savior for these Bengali people. And India got support from USSR also. On that time, I can tell you, on that particular phase, a little bit of later, from that phase, there was a Soviet, I can't say invasion or aggression, but a Soviet presence in Afghanistan. That was another geopolitical strategy of this particular terrain. To counter this, the Americans created these Talibans.
Correct.
To counter the Soviets. So that is another episode. Correct. So this Taliban later on became detrimental for the Americans itself. That led to Osama bin Laden, and the World Trade Center, then the power dynamics, happened, right? Yeah, exactly. So these are the history. Now, this is a consistent rivalry between India and Pakistan. Later on, you must be knowing in 90s, the Kargil War, the infiltration by the terrorists in the Himalayan terrain of Kargil. Indian force ultimately kicked them out. That was also a big war between India and Pakistan. In between, the biggest ever diplomatic setback or wrong handling of the Chinese issue by the Nehru government, which we all know in the 1962s, when there's a famous quote called Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, the Chinese head told Nehru that we are all friends. So the friends cannot attack each other's territory. What Nehru did, he withdrew troops from the core areas of Sino-Indian borders. And what was the result? There was a huge aggression from the Chinese. At that time, India was not that much of advanced country, a poor country struggling for its own existence, food scarcity, industries was not there, infrastructurally very poor, technologically is very crippled. So naturally, Chinese invaded a huge land, more than 3,500 kilometers land taken by the Chinese. And ultimately, UN had to intervene. The biggest ever intervention by UN, United Nations, and there was a ceasefire called. But ultimately, India lost a huge land. Still, we are suffering. Still, there is a huge land they have taken in Arunachal Pradesh. There is a huge land they have taken in Siachen Glacier. They have taken a huge land in so-called Sikkim border, the Aksai Chin, right? Correct. Even in the Nepal border also. So then the United Nations created that famous McMahon line. That means there is a line of control and between India and Pakistan. But ultimately, then that line was drawn after the Chinese taking a huge land. So after taking that land, they have drawn that line. So already it has been established that the maximum lands taken from India. In spite of that, you must be knowing in the recent 3 to 4 years back, in the Galwan incident, China again tried to invade the Indian territory. But this time, 1962's India and 2005, 4 or 2010 and 2026 India is something different. Now, I told you the famous quotation of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Buddha smiles. Now India has become an emerging power in this subcontinent. Yes, in the global power index also, you must be knowing, few months back there was a global power index published by the competent authorities. Correct. And India is ranked 4th in the world. Not only that, even in Air Force and the precision in airstrike, India is ahead of China, 3rd position, right? Maybe in the number of aircrafts, number of fighter aircrafts, China is definitely ahead. But you have a huge number of aircrafts, but you don't have that kind of precision and technology and expertise of your pilots or your fighter pilots. which India really is proud of. So in this Operation Sindoor, Indian Army, Indian Air Force proved their precision. So this is the present situation, and because of this long historical background of international politics and India's role initially as a main contributor in NAM, therefrom breaking Pakistan, forming Bangladesh, countering Pakistan, not only countering, ultimately India won the battles and Pakistan badly lost the battles in 1965, lost the battle in 1971. India gave them back huge land, and even the armies, huge number of armies surrendered. And at this point of time, India is almost on the verge of a super military power. Like our air force, our army, our paramilitary forces, our missile system, our anti-aircraft guns, our all missiles, surface to air to surface, air to air, like Prithvi, Agni, Nag, Akash, the series of Agnis. We have already manufactured IRBM. Now we are in the elite club of ICBM. So this is the historical background. Over the years, India has achieved. That's why today's India, everybody respect, and India can voice any international issue loudly, firmly, and say we will follow that particular angle that serves our interest. We will not succumb to any American pressure. We will not succumb to any Russian pressure. We will not succumb to any Chinese pressure. Whatever we think and feel good for us, we'll go by that.
So I think you touched on a very good point, like about the history where we come from, how the last 50 years would have been, and how the credibility was not built on a day but over decades. And this is giving the fruit, because many people would not agree, but yeah, right now where we are in terms of geopolitical stance, maybe as you started off saying that, okay, we have a history, but yeah, right now this present government has done a very good job. So the thing is, as you also mentioned about the wars that we fought and what mistakes we have learned from our mistakes. And India has never been an aggressor in any of the wars. We never started any war. We have never been the first.
We only defended all
exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Whenever somebody attacked us, we defended. Still, initial time, we also tell them, don't do this, don't do this. But then ultimately you have to defend that's your dharma. Ultimately, if you are attacked by someone, so at a point of time you have to defend. Bhagavad Gita told justice to others and justice to yourself.
Sure. We have just seen the conflict between India and Pakistan, the Operation Sindoor, if I call it. Now, the thing is, there we have seen how the narrative was set, where you spoke about AIs, right? So we have seen how AI and how the narrative was built. Do you think that in future algorithms will be much more relevant in winning than armies, like winning a war more than their armies?
Absolutely. See, conventional war is almost gone. There is no conventional war, right? Definitely there is a need of border security forces, like in our border. When, like, take for example our case, we are sharing border with Nepal. We are sharing border with Bhutan. We are sharing a huge border with Bangladesh. We are sharing border with Pakistan in Punjab and Kashmir. But that is only to check the infiltrators. But again, there is a question of competitiveness introducing the Bengali says kata tarir bera, like you are making some
barbed wire
wall, and this wall, technologically the walls are mostly electrocuted, like electric
flowing through
them. Like if somebody touch it,
they will
get consequences, right? So technology has been used. Now this traditional and conventional war system is almost over, right? You must be witnessing, or we are getting news that drones are used. Almost in all wars, the humans are not sent, only the fighter aircrafts. Take for example the recent war between Iran and Israel. Mostly Israel strikes from air, right? And the rest is the drone, right? Recently, in the year 2025, October, I went to Russia. So the day was I was supposed to come back from Moscow to Delhi, then Delhi to Kolkata. So I am giving a live example to you, realistic example I faced in Moscow. When I was inside my plane, it was Aeroflot, the Russian Airlines, which was supposed to start from the Moscow local time at 7 p.m. But somehow the plane was delayed for 1 hour, 1.5 hour. We were all inside the plane. The plane was supposed to start, all checking done. We are inside. It's a big Airbus. So out of curiosity, I asked one of the crew member of the Aeroflot that what happened. They did not give me any information. They're saying just enjoy, take some coffee, tea. They're supplying foods. Music is going on. They have arranged movies, even Bollywood movies, because there are many Indians.
Correct.
They're giving us some headphones and translator headphones.
This is when exactly? Sorry.
It's in Moscow airport.
When the time duration? When was it?
Date you're talking about?
Yeah, but which month or like
October.
Last year.
Last year, 2025.
Okay.
So one of my co-passenger was a Russian, right? But he was also coming to Delhi. He used to visit. He's a businessman. So Russians can't speak English properly, and sometimes they don't speak also deliberately because they're very proud about their own language, not like us. So I asked him that, what is the real story behind this? Why the plane is delayed? Now he's smiling and telling me that they will not reveal you. I'm telling you, there is a drone attack from Ukraine in the vicinity of the Moscow airport, which has been anticipated by the Russian technology, anti-drone system, and which is completely based on algorithm based. Right? So they are not revealing to you because you will be panicked. You will become very frightened and there will be a chaos. So they want to manage it, and we are extremely capable of dealing this. We are facing for the last 2 years this kind of drone attack, but they could not even penetrate a single alpine of the Russian airport. So you have already anticipated, because I have already spoken with that lady crew, because both are Russians, they are sharing their thoughts and views in their own language, but that was not revealed to the foreign tourist or the passengers. So that was completely algorithm. So he's telling we are so equipped with the robotic warfare, so we can able to tackle this easily, and it is completely AI and algorithm based. There is no need of any fighter aircraft. There is no need of using missiles. There is no need of any other sort of any crude or conventional military weapon. We are just countering. All the drones have been anticipated and they are destroyed within the sky in the vicinity of the airport. 10 to 15 kilometers outside the airport. So this kind of technology, not even that, Indian Army is also, you must be doing Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. They are preparing the robotic technology, right? Now these robots and these drones and the robots are completely based on AI based algorithms, and these will be used. And there will be chip inside. They will be able. There is a camera will be there. They will be able to detect. They will be able to tell in the control system who is coming, how to intercept, and they will automatically open, and the fire will start to counter this drones coming from other countries. So it will be completely technology-based warfare. Conventional warfare will be no more. There will be definitely missiles. There will be more sophisticated technology, and drones, invariably algorithm and AI will be used. It is already being used, and Israel is one of the best ever tech-savvy country in terms of this artificial intelligence warfare. I can give you the example of this. The way Israeli army hit the Tehran different bases and killed the key leaders precisely.
Correct.
Somebody may be residing in a hotel, somebody inside a bunker,
basement.
but the way the precision was met, that is called technology, which India also used in Operation Sindoor, like in different
Correct.
terrorist outfit, like that Masood Azhar's relatives
mosques.
were targeted,
Correct.
and the Indian army also precisely. Even not only that, the use of the jammers.
Correct.
You must be knowing that during this Operation Sindoor, Pakistani Air Force fighter crafts could not even fly
Correct.
because the jammers are installed. And the way the jammers are installed, when the Indian squadron of Rafale hit the Pakistani target, they can't do anything. Despite having so many Chinese missiles, so many anti-aircraft guns, nothing worked. So this is absolutely called the technology.
Completely understand, because the warfare has totally
Absolutely.
changed. It is no longer like
Drastically changed.
it is no longer like how we saw how it happened during World War II, or the traditional war between two armies face to face. It is more like sitting at home, you have a lot of drone attacks that happens. As you said, your own experience, right? That algorithms are working.
In addition to that, another very bad thing, which I consider really bad, but that is also being applied, and in the future that will be applicable, like spreading the different virus, biological warfare. That is another point. China is very, very expert on that, and China is doing all kind of this, like you must be doing during the COVID crisis. The Western world accused the Chinese that it was not a natural pandemic. It could be a man-made pandemic. Because it's nothing but a biological warfare, right? So this is very cruel, very bad, but this is the future. Like there's no point of flying a plane, pumping missiles, using energies. These are the soft skill. And another biggest skill is hacking, cyber attack. The biggest ever warfare nowadays. Like if, say for example, if the hackers coming from foreign countries, they enter the Indian banking system, giving you an example, banking system, and if they just collapse the Indian banking system, the whole network and the software, for 10 minutes, India will be losing 10 million US dollar within 5 minutes. So biggest ever threat.
Yeah, it makes complete sense, because the thing here is the wars have changed, the narrative setting with all these things, because what we have seen in Operation Sindoor, we all know that we won the war, but if you go and ask an average Pakistani citizen, they will say they have won the war. To validate that, they have promoted Asif Munir as a field marshal.
But ultimately all exposed in real terms.
Yeah, but the ordinary citizen does not believe that, because they see a different narrative that has been set.
This is called, you have to do a counter media narrative for that.
Yeah,
right?
Because going forward, what I have seen is narrative setup will be very, very important.
But there is an old proverb also, you can fool some people for some time, you can fool all people for some time, but you cannot fool all people for all time.
No, I think Pakistan falls in the third category, I think. So
that's why now it is very clear in front of the world that not a single Rafale has been destroyed. Even the Rafale, the manufacturer told that there is no single beaten piece of any Rafale destructed by the Pakistani, which they demand that they have shut down the Indian Rafales, shot down the Indian Rafales.
Correct. One question to you before we go ahead is like, what is the one geopolitical threat that India is currently ignoring, according to you? Is there anything that we should not be ignoring?
In fact, not that way, but I can tell you that first you have to tackle with your internal politics. And this internal politics of India, because India is a multi-party system, so many caste, creed, religion, ethnicities there in the country. And you must be knowing in India, there's a problem between religion, caste and creed. And the foreign nationals, especially your neighbors, with the help of your main hostile countries, we can understand Pakistan cannot be our threat. Our threat can be China. Our threat can be any other big countries. They can create problem for India, because India is rising. In a global politics, the already existing superpower will not very happy that another superpower is coming in the field.
Correct.
So India can be a threat and challenge for them. True. So they might use different cunning strategy with the help of internal disturbances within the country, and they might use your neighbors the biggest ever threat India is facing, the deep state. And it's all to the injury, you must be knowing, we all know, the huge media reports came out in different media platforms like in newspapers, portals, digital platforms, television channels, the chicken neck,
Correct.
the unrest in Bangladesh,
Correct.
the cutting strategy to uproot the Hasina government, fundamentalist forces came into power for the time being. Then again, India intervened, and India ultimately played a little bit of key role to stabilize situation in Bangladesh, and now it is BNP government.
Correct.
Now, still, there is a big threat of deep state in our country that we cannot ignore. We will be able to handle the outside problem, like if Pakistan tried to enter in our border with drone, we have the anti-missile system.
Correct.
But if there is a very cunning, strategic, deep state plot within the nation,
A
toolkit that has to be tackled in a very, very systematic way.
Correct.
Because thing is that বাংলায় বলি সেই মহাভারতে আছে না ঘরের শত্রু বিভীষণ.
Correct.
You'll be able to tackle your outside things.
But if your own people...
India is extremely capable of doing this. But if internally somebody is doing something wrong, like bug, right, is much more dangerous than BAG, bug or tiger.
Correct.
Tiger is visible, you can see, but bug is not visible. He will enter and systematically he will ruin your system. And that is the deep state plot. That thing Indian government has to look after, and government is definitely taking some very punitive measures regarding this. But that is our alarming part. We are not very much concerned about the external forces, but we are concerned about this traitor, deep state protagonist within the country, and they are being supported and funded and pumped by the external forces. That is our challenge.
So, coming to another question, this is very important. I think you are already doing a research on this. So, could you, because you said you were researching this part, so could you explain the key pillars of India's geopolitical landscape?
See, this is taken from my own research paper, which is published in an international Italian magazine. India playing a very pivotal and a very key role. So I can jot it down in a nutshell. Key pillars of India's geopolitical leadership. Number one is champion of the global south. India provides an alternative to traditional Western and Chinese models, advocating for developing nations' interest in multilateral forms like the G20 presidency. India is going to become the president of G20, number one.
Correct.
The second important role India played, strategic autonomy. What exactly it is? Refusing to be boxed into traditional bloc politics, India maintains independent ties with the US, Russia, and European Union simultaneously. There is a conflict between Russia and US.
Correct.
US and European Union in the same bloc, but there is some little bit of if and but is there, but still they're close, but Russia is completely opposing them. But
Correct.
India is able to maintain a very good relationship, a strategic autonomy with all of them for India's interest, not for their interest. Using its diplomatic weight as a potential peacemaker and stabilizing force. Number three is Indo-Pacific security, very, very important. As a key member of the Quad, India acts as a net security provider, ensuring freedom of navigation and maritime security against regional assertiveness. Number four, economic alternatives. India is capitalizing on the restructuring of global supply chains to position itself as a major manufacturing and clean technology hub, reducing over-reliance on a single nation. That means we will no more dependent to a single nation, because our relationship with all the countries are very good. Just a small example, like take for example, taking oil. We are in a position to take oil from Israel. We are also in a position to take oil from Russia, though they are not in the same bloc. Israel is definitely
Correct.
pro-Americans and Russia is against US. But while transferring technology or oil, both the countries are willing to help India. This is the biggest ever victory of our diplomatic war. Last, digital and soft power. Initiatives like the Digital Public Infrastructure DPI and the leveraging of its massive diaspora significantly boost India's geopolitical influence. Right? Now, if we elaborate this in a nutshell, I'm giving you an example, a precise example. The recent escalation in West Asia, particularly the US-Israel strikes on Iran, underscores the return of hard power in global politics. In this increasingly polarized international system, the need for credible mediators is greater than ever. With its doctrine of strategic autonomy, balanced relations with rival blocs, I repeat, balanced relations with rival blocs, and credibility across the global south, India occupies a unique diplomatic space. This positions India as a potential global peacemaker capable of facilitating dialogue and reducing geopolitical tensions. Furthermore, if I make it in terms of points, anchor and voice of the global south, digital public infrastructure DPI as a soft power, strategic de-hyphenation and mediation in West Asia, like the recent example of Iran and fight between Tehran and Tel Aviv.
Correct.
Credible mediation in the Eurasia conflict. The example of India has transitioned into a peace architect by maintaining high-level trust with both Moscow and Kiev. Kiev means Ukraine.
Ukraine now.
Apart from this, the role is solidified by India's refusal to weaponize trade, allowing it to act as a functional intermediary for humanitarian and diplomatic back channels. Net security provider in the Indo-Pacific. By strengthening naval interoperability with regional democracies, India deters unilateral aggression without escalating tensions into a formal rigid military alliance. Besides, de-risker of weaponized global supply chains, like as a global powers increasingly weaponize technology and trade, India is building a resilient alternative supply chains to mitigate global geopolitical extortion. Apart from this, the economic diplomacy dilutes the destructive power of unilateral sanctions and fosters cooperation, decentralized global growth. India's production-linked incentive (PLI) schemes have attracted billions in foreign direct investment, significantly boosting domestic manufacturing in critical sectors like semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, which the government is giving very big stress. Consequently, major tech giants like Apple have shifted nearly 25% of the global iPhone production in India, as a matter of fact,
Correct.
successfully reducing reliance on volatile manufacturing hubs in East Asia. Mediator in global climate diplomacy. Now, India plays a big role in climate diplomacy.
Correct. Carbon footprint.
Yes, India acts as a crucial negotiator, bridging the severe trust deficit between developed and developing nations regarding climate action and green financing. So, endless work India has done in between. So, the days are coming, not very far, we are not very far. We have already treated by the world powers as a superpower, though we have not achieved that. I told you in my initial discussion of this podcast that still we are struggling in economics, still we are struggling in terms of GDP, the basic health, education, employment. But we are rising. Days are not very far. that India will clinch the position of a superpower sooner or later. And definitely in the coming few years, I hope the way we are progressing, India will be a permanent member of United Nations Security Council.
That's a good thing. You have shared a lot of things. I just want to understand one thing. Like, if you have to summarize this entire stuff, what you have said is there are a lot of development. There are a lot of good work that is happening. My question is, we are talking about this paper talks about like you have research and it's the fact because it talks about the kind of relationship we maintain with others, that we are not bound to one country but we maintain with others. Don't you think that's the most important superpower here would be that if we start manufacturing, if we start producing things by ourselves, that Atmanirbhar Bharat.
That already we're doing.
Yeah, but not to an extent where today we see where the crisis with the gas is.
It will take time. See, for example, India is not blessed with gas and petroleums. Right?
Correct.
Say, we are blessed with agriculture, we are blessed with tea, we are blessed with jute, we are blessed with coal.
Correct.
So we are blessed. So in the physical geography, in India is not a terrain where you can produce huge number of gases, and we don't have that much of refinery. Definitely, in northeast in Assam, there's a refinery there in Bongaigaon in Assam.
Correct.
In Gujarat coast also, but in the heartland of the country, like in the main land of our country, like Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand is very rich for minerals, but not for the gas. So some countries are blessed with some natural resources. So naturally, India is not that much a place, but what India is doing is coming with alternative power energies. Like we are giving emphasis on solar energy to counter the normally hydroelectricity or the thermal power. We are giving emphasis about the nuclear energy. Like I can tell you, I can share you that when US refused to give uranium to India because they apprehended that if they provide us uranium, India will be able to make nuclear bombs very quickly. They didn't give us. What we did, that is also called Atmanirbhar Bharat. That time, we replaced uranium and thorium has been used in the nuclear reactor. So definitely India is coming up with all the alternatives, and sooner or later we will be able to cut down all our deficit, and whatever mission and vision we have taken to be a superpower, we will achieve it.
Thank you so much for this talking about these key pillars of the geopolitics leadership that India is doing. And you are right that we have a lot to go, but because we don't have all the facilities and because of our demographic challenges, it's better that we have a system where we can look at alternatives. This is a very good thought. Now, coming to our end of this session and asking you one question, like if a 20-year-old asks you why geopolitics matters, what would you tell them?
First thing is their employability, right? That is very important. I started with this.
Yeah, you said job loss.
You would lose your job. If more technology comes, you will be more sharpened, and that technology will be converted into your profession, right? That can be stopped if there is a turmoil in world politics because of conflict, war, and some kind of confrontations. Next is the biggest ever challenge they might face, the digital threat. Like we are all dependent on internet nowadays, right? Like we are no more a citizen, we are more as a netizens.
Correct.
Right? We are now heavy media consumers and heavy internet consumers. So there can be a huge obstruction of this digital decentralization if there is a war-like situation across the globe. And definitely your energy. You have to live in this world with the help of energy. It can be petrol, it can be gas, it can be nuclear energy. And the country, a nation, grows with the help of energy and a cheap energy, which India is still struggling at this point of time. Still we are affected because the war is going on between two nations. Maybe they are 5,000 kilometers far, but our petrol price is rising, 113 rupees in Kolkata, which affects in your day-to-day household items, the carrying cost.
Correct.
Plus, if there is a war, there is a problem in food supply chain also. Because definitely we are producing some crops, we are manufacturing something, we are blessed with some fertile lands, but we are not completely independent by nature. We have to depend to other countries and vice versa. So if there is a confrontation and conflict and there is a destabilized situation in international geopolitics, that will hamper from Alaska to Albania,
Correct.
from Canada to Cyprus, from Bulgaria to Brazil, from India to Indonesia. Everybody will suffer.
Absolutely. No, I think this is very important. This is very pertinent when we speak about geopolitics, right? So it actually affects everybody's life. We don't see it directly, but indirectly it does. As you said,
Absolutely.
when the gas prices increases, everything else follows as a cascading mechanism. I think we had a very, very wonderful discussion around all this geopolitics, where India stands, what we have done, and you have also spoken about the history, the key capabilities of this geopolitical leadership. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Professor Debanjan, for coming here
Thank you
and
so
speaking to us.
Thank
and
you for
giving us-
inviting me. It's a really pleasure to me. And this kind of podcast is very essential for the students, those who are working in media, even in law, in political science, in international relations, as well as they are doing their profession in technology also, because everything is interlinked nowadays, which is called the convergent concept of education. Everything is coming into one. Like even in our education policy, new education policy has introduced this kind, like a student of political science can be a student of technology, because geopolitics means everything.
It encompasses
It comes everything
Correct.
under one roof.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank
Take a moment and reflect on this conversation, because sometimes one idea is all it takes to change everything.